There is a second map of the United States no one is taught in school. Not highways, not rivers, a lattice of walls. If you zoom out far enough, it spells out a strategy. Put prisons where distance does the punishing, where water becomes a wall, where counties trade lost mines for guard jobs, and where jurisdiction bends just enough to make hard things easier. El Salvador built one giant fortress called CECOT. America did something colder. It built a network, ADX Florence, in the high desert of Colorado, Pelican Bay tucked against the fog line of far northern California, Red Onion and Wallens Ridge on the spine of Virginia, USP Big Sandy blasted into Appalachian rock, Angola hemmed by the Mississippi River in Louisiana, Rikers Island ringed by water inside New York City, Terre Haute in Indiana for executions and transfers, Adelanto in the Mojave for immigration detention. Each dot looks like a logistics choice. Together they read like a policy. None of these coordinates are accidents. Remote deserts mute outrage. Islands and peninsulas keep a city at arm's length. Rural mountaintops promise payrolls where coal and timber left. Former air bases come with runways, fences, and empty horizons already paid for. Along the southern border, detention sites sit beside interstates so buses roll at dawn and planes lift at dusk. And offshore, Guantanamo Bay reminds us that the farthest wall is a legal line. This film follows that hidden map. We will show why the supermax sits outside Florence, why Louisiana's plantation ground still cages people at Angola, why Rikers stays an island, why California stacked prisons in the Central Valley, and why immigration beds bloom in Adelanto, Dilley, Carnes, and Chrome. Facility by facility, the pattern sharpens. Isolation by geography, profit by postcode, and accountability diluted by distance. America did not build one CECOT. It built a countrywide maze. And what that maze reveals is disturbing. Stand on the high plateau outside Florence, Colorado, and you feel it first. The wind, the distance, the silence. A supermax built so far from everything that the landscape does half the guarding for you. ADX Florence sits miles from Denver, miles from any major city, in a basin of scrub and stone where sound dies and horizons run out. Here, isolation is not a policy on paper, it is the terrain. The logic is simple and cold. Remote sighting shrinks visits to a trickle, families drive all day, lawyers count the hours, media interest fades with every mile. Staffing pulls from a county where corrections is the economy, so turnover hurts less than outrage. Weather helps the perimeter, summer heat that wavers off rock, winter cold that knifes the lungs. Even the road in feels intentional, long and exposed, a reminder that control begins before the first gate. In the late 1990s, as supermax thinking hardened, ADX became the template. Bury a person in concrete and surround the concrete with emptiness. No city protests on the doorstep, no neighborhood hearings, just a facility that calls itself secure because everything around it is nothing. Inside, the distance tightens to a box. Most men live 23 hours a day in a single cell of poured concrete. A narrow window is angled at the sky so you can tell day from night, not much else. Meals come through a slot. Programs arrive on a screen. Recreation is 1 hour, alone, in a concrete pen with mesh overhead, the sky a rectangle. Conversations are monitored. Movement is by cuff and door. Even visits are no contact, glass and phones, when the schedule allows and the weather cooperates. The routine grinds down to geometry. Steps from bunk to door, from door to sink, count after count. Medical arrives when it can. Mail arrives when it does. Attorneys burn a day getting here and another day getting home. In a place built on silence, complaints do not travel far. Now leave the high desert for the Appalachian ridgelines. Cross into eastern Kentucky, where a mountaintop was cut flat for a new economy. Next, USP Big Sandy. From the Colorado Plateau, pull the map east until the ridgelines tighten and coal scars the hills. On a flattened mountaintop in Martin County, Kentucky, near Inez, the federal pen named for the Big Sandy River sits on reclaimed strip mine earth. The mine is gone. The payroll stayed, only now it wears a badge. Inside, distance delivers the first punishment. Families crawl along U.S. Route 460 and two-lane mountain roads for hours, then climb switchbacks to a lobby that can close without warning. Visits change with lockdowns, rules change with staffing. In high security, doors speak more than people. Steel on steel counts on the hour. Cells are tight. Movement is rationed. Recreation happens in fenced pens that face the wind. The special housing unit, segregation, means a slot for meals, a shower on the schedule, and lights that do not care if you sleep. Medical comes when it can. Mail arrives when it does. Attorneys burn a day getting here. For the town, the prison is a lifeline. For the men inside, the mountain is a wall you cannot see through. This is the Appalachia tactic in plain view. Build where work vanished, sell isolation as safety, and let geography thin out oversight, journalists, inspectors, anyone who is not on the payroll. The perimeter never closes, neither does the distance. Now drop the map south until the hills flatten into floodplain, and the Mississippi River draws a crooked moat around a prison the size of a small city. Next stop, Louisiana State Penitentiary, Angola. Drop the map south until the hills flatten into floodplain and the Mississippi River draws a crooked moat around a prison the size of a small city. Louisiana State Penitentiary, Angola sits on former plantation ground, tens of thousands of acres bounded by water and levee. A place chosen because distance and mud do half the guarding. One road in, no neighbors. A built-in buffer that keeps protests and cameras far away. Inside, scale becomes policy. Housing camps spread across fields. Watchtowers look over rows of men moving in lines. Work is farm work, under sun that bleaches the sky and humidity that never lets up. Heat indexes climb. Mosquitoes do not care about schedules. Many here are serving life, which turns time into the punishment and geography into the enforcement. Medical can be an hour and a van ride away. Attorneys count entire days to make a single visit. Families cross parish lines and river bends for a few minutes face to face, and then the same road back. Everything about the placement blunts oversight. Water narrows access. Land swallows sound. The nearest town depends on the payroll, so complaint becomes complicated. From the air, Angola looks like agriculture. On the ground, it feels like a fortress built out of history and river clay. Now lift the map to the Pacific edge, where redwoods and fog swallow the coastline and the state of California built a supermax to hide men from the horizon. Next stop, Pelican Bay State Prison in Del Norte County. At the far edge of Del Norte County, where redwoods lean over U.S. Route 101 and the Pacific throws fog across the road, Pelican Bay State Prison sits at the end of the map. That placement is the point. Hundreds of miles from Los Angeles and the Bay Area, oversight thins with each curve of coastline. The nearest big audience is the ocean. Inside, the architecture does the talking. The Security Housing Unit, the SHU, was built to subtract stimuli. Concrete pods, slit views, a thin strip of sky above a pen they call a yard. Movement is measured indoors. Time is measured in counts. After hunger strikes and a landmark settlement in 2015, California ended indefinite solitary and moved hundreds out of the SHU. But the design still teaches the same lesson. Isolation by blueprint, compliance by quiet. Crescent City depends on the payroll, officers, vendors, the ripple of state money, so closing talk lands like a threat, not a promise. Families drive the length of the state for an hour behind glass. Lawyers plan visits like expeditions. The fog helps the wall. Follow the shoreline east and the water turns from weather into weapon. Next stop, an island jail hidden in plain sight, Rikers Island in New York City. Where the East River braids around LaGuardia's runways sits a jail the size of a small town, hidden in plain sight. Rikers Island is not remote by miles, it is remote by water. One narrow bridge controls everything: ambulances, lawyers, families, food. When that span chokes, time does the punishing. Inside, logistics shape life. Intake pens back up for hours. A court date vanishes because a bus never makes the crossing. Medical runs stall behind escorts that never come. Whole units live by the rumor mill. Lockdowns, short staffing, movement frozen. Summers trap heat in cinder block. Winters drive wind off the water through gaps you can feel in your bones. Phones cut. Visits shrink. Grievances age out. On paper, oversight is minutes away in Manhattan. In practice, the island turns minutes into distance. Violence here rides the same tide. A string of deaths, a federal monitor, reform plans that promise closure and then slip. Officers work doubles to cover vacancies. People wait for medication, for showers, for a door to open. The city keeps the footprint off the mainland, out of view, behind a shoreline that feels like policy. A jail barge moored off the Bronx has taken overflow before, another wall made of water. Rikers answers the siting question bluntly. Water buys separation, separation buys control, and control buys silence. For the city, not the people living inside. You can see the skyline from some yards. You cannot reach it. Leave the island and cross the map to the desert, where distance is measured in sun and runway. Next stop, Adelanto Ice Processing Center in the Mojave. Drive past Joshua trees and wind farms on the edge of the Mojave, and the heat feels like a verdict. On the flat outside Adelanto, razor wire draws a square in the sand. This is not a prison by statute. It is civil detention, but everything about it behaves like custody. The facility sits near Interstate 15 and the air corridors of Victorville's logistics hub, where buses roll at dawn and planes lift at dusk. Geography does the paperwork. Distance for families, speed for removals. Inside, time is fluorescent. Dorms hum, vents rattle, the air is dry enough to crack skin. People sleep in rows under cameras, line up for counts, wait on medical slips drop through a slot. Phone calls cost. Commissary prices climb. Grievances circle back with answers that read like templates. In segregation, the light never quite dims. In the dorms, the speaker squawks names that send someone to chain and transport. You can see the mountains. You cannot touch them. Adelanto runs on a private contract. That means predictable bed space, predictable invoices, predictable silence. The desert helps. Few neighbors, cheaper land, a labor pool that needs the work. When detainees stage a hunger strike, it is the only leverage they own. Bodies against policy, voices against wind. The signs on the perimeter say no photographs. The buses do not. This is the border archipelago logic distilled. Place civil custody far from cities, next to highways and runways, so transfers are swift and witnesses are scarce. A detainee can cross 3 counties before noon and be on a removal flight by nightfall. The map makes it easy, the distance makes it invisible. Leave the heat behind and push the map off the mainland, past any state line, past any county board. Next stop, Guantanamo Bay, where the farthest wall is a legal one. Sail past any county line, any state court, any legislator's district, and you reach the edge of Cuba's southeastern coast, the American naval base at Guantanamo Bay. Here, the water is not just a moat, it is a jurisdiction. Offshore, outside ordinary courtrooms, outside ordinary politics, the fence line is steel, but the real barrier is legal. Inside, the names are bland and unforgettable at once. Camp Delta, Camp 5, Camp 6. Corridors of cinder block and echo. Fluorescent light that erases time. Detainees pace narrow ranges or sit beneath vent grates that breathe hot air. A meeting with counsel means a flight from Florida, a badge, an escort, a windowless room where every sentence feels recorded in the walls. Journalists arrive on guided tours. The camera sees what the schedule permits, nothing more. Hunger strikes turn bodies into petitions. The response is clinical. Restraint chairs, feeding tubes, forms. Years pass, sometimes without trial, sometimes before military commissions that move like slow weather. Mail is screened. Calls are rationed. The Caribbean wind carries the sound of the flag halyard tapping a mast, and not much else. This place was chosen precisely because it is off the map that governs everywhere else. An outpost leased more than a century ago, later repurposed in the early 2000s to hold people beyond the mainland's reach. After long litigation, some rights pushed through the water and reached federal judges, but the offshore line did its work. Delay, distance, discretion. Guantanamo is the purest form of the siting logic we have been tracing. When geography and law align, accountability thins. The ocean becomes a wall, the wall becomes policy. Now bring the map home. Zoom out until deserts, islands, floodplains, and ridgelines all fit in one frame. What those placements reveal: and what they cost. America did not build one fortress. It built a logic, etched into deserts, floodplains, islands, and ridgelines, where distance does the punishing, poverty does the staffing, and water or law finishes the wall. Zoom out, and the pattern answers the title. Prisons sit where oversight thins, where land is cheap, where politics is quiet, and where the map itself becomes part of the sentence. If this pulled the curtain back, help us keep going. Tap like, subscribe, and share. Tell us in the comments. Should prisons be brought closer to the communities that fund them, or pushed even farther away? Which placement shocked you most, and what map should we expose next? New deep dives are coming. More places where geography hides power. Thanks for watching.